And what we learned about prudence is it's basically the guide to all of the other virtues. It's the steering wheel, if you will. And although through the consequences of prudence, a lot of times we do notice that it's quite obvious, but still the struggle remains for us. I thought that this chapter really helped us to pinpoint and examine the ways in which we are not being prudent and the ways that we are being prudent, specifically in our marriage, in ways that I hadn't even thought about.
When we first started, my simplistic form of the thought of prudence, specifically on my end, was coming home every night and helping with the children, and that was the prudent thing to do rather than going out to the bar or hanging out with my friends. But when we really started to drill down into what prudence meant in our marriage, we understood it to be more present to each other, to our children, and to those that we might have invited over to the house. So one of the things that we have implemented from going through this process was creating a phone bin. So getting the phones, from carrying those around all the time and putting those in a specific place, so the children know and that we know that the time is theirs.
And then another thing that we thought was really funny was one of the exercises in this challenge for the week of prudence was to read from Proverbs 14 and to pick something that stood out to you about how your spouse reminds you of a way that that Scripture related prudence to them. And there's quite a few verses to choose from in 14, but both of us wound up choosing the same exact one for each other, which was kind of funny because I'll read it to you. It doesn't really seem like it fits well, and the fact that both of us chose it for each other just had us rolling. Proverbs 14:4, where there are no oxen, there is no grain, but abundant crops come by the strength of the ox. And I thought he was going to crack up when I said that this was the one I chose for him, and then he went first and said, this is the one I chose for you. So that was pretty much a whole night of discussion right there.
Yeah, and we obviously chose them for the same verse, but for two different reasons. Mine for her was because of the children. So the work that she does in the home with the children, providing that abundant life for us and the family and for the children specifically.
And I saw the fact that through his prudence and his judgment for our family, he is always working and giving more of himself, and he's always making very good calls in spite of something that maybe he or we would prefer. It was interesting, the topics for this week's discussion focused on being prudent in matters of finance, children, order, and discipline. And I felt like all of those were pretty heavy hitters and good topics of discussion because they got deeper than just the average discussions that we might have on a day-to-day basis when we're not really digging in. But this really helped us to see how important virtue, and specifically this virtue of prudence, is in our marriage and in our day-to-day life.